What if growing your startup didn't mean being on every single platform, running in 10 directions, constantly guessing what may or may not work? In this episode, we're cutting through the noise. I'm joined by Ward van Gasteren, a growth expert who helps startups grow faster by doing less, but doing it smarter. He shared a simple framework that early stage teams can use to find focus, stop the overwhelm, and figure out what exactly moves the needle. We're talking real stories, common mistakes, and how to stop wasting time on things that do not work. Let's dive in. Bud, welcome to No Hacks Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. I'm really excited for this, Annie.
Awesome. So let's start by describing what you do exactly. So you're a growth, I don't even know, marketer, hacker, what is it? How would you describe what you do to someone who has no idea?
So I normally simply go for growth consultant, and then it depends on whether someone is aware of what growth hacking, growth marketing is, or if it's someone who works as a dentist, then I have to go a bit further back. But for most people, I explain it as I help you answer the question of how do we grow or how do we grow faster? And the main challenge there is there are so many different variables. But for a lot of companies, it's a black box. How they grow, it just happens, and they don't have a systematic way of thinking about it. So I help them decipher what are the different parts that you need for growth, and then systematically we create a strategy for how do you grow, and we roll that out so that they can don't have to juggle 12 different social accounts and can just focus on doing the activities that are working for them.
Right. My co-founder describes that as finding one happy path before you decide what other paths you want to take. And basically, when you're early stage, it is so easy to get overwhelmed by so many things that people are recommending on LinkedIn, Twitter, or wherever else. How would you describe it to a dentist, though? You mentioned a dentist.
Yeah. So like if I go like I'm a growth coach or growth consultant, it becomes very vague for them. So then I try to explain more of like the difference between what marketing does versus what growth does, or I help to explain a bit more of like the whole concept of a funnel, and we help to optimize every step of people's experience, and we can tweak and improve every part of a business, and then over time that compounds into more growth.
That's a wonderful dentist visit conversation to have. So how do you
Audience cost, right?
how do you assess the impact and value of what you're doing for a client?
Most of the time that's in literal growth, but I found lately that also a lot of startup founders also feel a lot more confidence and a lot more efficiency in how they work, and they have a lot less overwhelm of all the different growth activities. So that's most of the time. It's ideally I want to impact growth directly. I have this growth software where I help people to run more experiments. Then the focus is more on let's focus on creating more velocity, running more experiments, and then less of the direct growth impact, because that's was straight too far.
That's very interesting. So do you start with a North Star metric or something that's, we have this one, and if everything else fails and that one is good, that's success? Or do you create a measurement plan and have a bunch of metrics to track when you're starting with a client?
I think it's more in the people business in this case. So I try to listen to what the company wants to achieve in this case, instead of coming up with like a new metric, because then I have to convince them twice. And I agree, right? In the end, you want to improve bottom line, you want to get more growth in, and therefore it's most of the time focused on, in the end, we want to get more revenue. But if they are also more focused on like, hey, yeah, we are getting a lot of traffic, so we need to improve conversions, and we focus there. Or if they are getting a lot of clients but retention is low, then we focus there. That's a bit of how I look at it.
So it really depends on the situation the company is in. And
definitely. So I have different types of clients. One time it's a dentist, and the other time indeed it's more of it's a SaaS company, so that can be very different.
Oh, of course. Can you share some case studies where, give me one example for people who are not necessarily in growth. You did this for a company and then this explosive growth happened.
Yeah. So interesting. At this point, I'm working more on like the concept of I try to set up with most companies. Sorry, I noticed for a second now that my current mic is still off, so I don't know how the
I hear
sound
it.
quality is
It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay, good. So I notice, sorry, going back. So most of the time when I come on with a client, growth is kind of all over the place. So we want to find more of a focus and how can we improve that? So in case of many clients, we want to find of like what is the basically your 80-20 rule of which parts of your growth efforts indeed work best versus others. So you can call it indeed like your co-founder says, the happy path. And I call it the 1-1-1 growth strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have one audience, one channel, and one message that you go out with. And that is more than enough to get you to a 1, 2, or even 3 million in yearly revenue. So that's most of like the early stage companies that I work with. So and it's a game of figuring out what is the best audience, best message, best channel to go after. And that consists of running a lot of different experiments. I do two kinds of projects. So one is more I do the coaching, and it's I guide a company in how they do it themselves, or I come in and take on the responsibility and the execution of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So then it is more on the side of I will actually be setting out the strategy, running the experiments, and coming back with all the learnings that you get out of it so that the next round of experiments gets even better.
Right, but the 1-1-1 framework, I really like that because, of course, you need to figure out what the 1 are, and that's where the experimentation comes into play. But rather than trying to do 10 things at the same time, maybe you can test 10 things at the same time, but try to find that one that works better than everything else and just go full on there. Right, that's the advice.
That's the last thing as well. Also, like the doubling down there, like you need to understand the growth game that you are playing, and you need to play it better than everyone else.
Right.
Because if you are playing 3 different sports at once at the Olympics and still expect to win gold, that's not the case. You'll lose everywhere.
That's a great analogy. I love that. So there are going to be a lot of problems and hurdles when you're dealing with growth. What are some of the most common ones in identifying and in implementing growth strategies that you see with your clients?
So indeed, a common problem is people don't want to let go of different things. So they really believe that they need to be active on multiple channels and have a multi-channel approach to be effective. And it's like I think that is more on when you're at a 10 million yearly revenue, that's when you need to start considering multi-channel approaches and you go maybe more upmarket, those kind of things. But like in the beginning, it's really one channel can be enough, and you don't need to make it super complicated, even for B2B enterprise kind of deals. So that's one of the big struggles if people want to stay active on multiple channels and therefore never get good at the main thing that brings in the money. And then the second thing is that a lot of companies are really putting all their eggs in a social media basket, which is just super hard to, like, maybe if your product or your concept has this natural tendency to go viral and be interesting to look at or speak about, then you might consider it. But even then, it's like social media, organic social is more to build your brand, build momentum, build trust. But it shouldn't be the main driver for revenue. It's more like we mainly run ads or we mainly do search. And then because people have seen us on social, they are more likely to convert when they see us in search or as an ad. And more doing it like that. But using social as a main channel, that's big no-no.
Even paid social or just organic?
No, paid social is a different game, right? You can be. It's more that you want to build a reliable, consistent stream of income. Mm-hmm. So it's like we know how much money we spend, how many leads we get. But with organic social, you're very much dependent on algorithms, on individual posts, and that's it's also very hard, I think, to be great at organic social if you are trying to sell. So if you have selling targets to hit, then you can't make fun, interesting, honest content. So, but paid social is different there. You can
Got
go
it.
there.
So it's a completely different channel that you can turn on and off. With organic social, unless you are already an influencer and have a huge following, I assume you're talking about starting from zero or almost zero with social and trying to build it up. Of course, that's going to be a lot of luck. It's going to take a lot of time. You don't want to depend on that for a consistent stream of income, like you said.
Exactly. Not for the consistent stream of income, but it's like if you have your proper ads or search just working for you, then you can use social, but don't no longer using it with the eye on conversion. So you can all focus in on building a fun social brand, and that is what works on social. And there you can double down then on being a brand that people love, and that will help you in the end with conversions. But it's so much easier if you have nothing to promote or sell, then you can. Then it's suddenly easy to build like more of a media brand on social.
One example that comes to mind is Gooder, the sunglasses, the running sunglasses. This is exactly what they did. They started by selling affordable running sunglasses that don't slip, they don't fall, they're super cheap. And then they built this entire social media presence. They have the like unicorns, whatever, like completely wild. They have beer runs where people drink beer and run at the same time. They're joking around. They're not trying to sell directly, but it's supporting and building the brand. And the reason I mention them is because I'm a fan. I have like 3 pairs of those sunglasses. They're just awesome.
Nice.
They're not sponsoring the podcast, obviously. So let's talk about creativity in growth in general. So what is the role of creativity? Is it all patterns and principles and strategies, or can you really get creative as well?
Yeah, I think like in an ideal situation, you try to map out the whole playing field, turn it into smaller areas, and test all the areas at once just to see which area of the playing field is most interesting for us. And then you want to narrow down there and optimize there. So in an ideal world, you have figured out the whole playing field, but at some point maybe the playing field is evolving, or someone comes up with a new idea and it can be more of a challenger of the main thing that you have going. So there it's necessary. And then I think more in, you don't want to always be playing it safe. So you need a bit of creativity there to get better at things. But I see most of the times, if you just run the experiments at a higher velocity and you are properly learning from them and listening to customers, then you're already getting so much further than where initial creativity could bring you.
Got it. And choosing the channel, going back to 1-1-1 framework, because is there anything more simple than 1-1-1? Like basically, even the name of the framework. How can you use creativity maybe in finding which channels to focus on, what to do on the channels? Like, I'm guessing that's where it comes into play, right?
No, I don't even think you need creativity at that part. It's you want to start, like I do this as a coaching program specifically for startups. It's going live in the middle of May for the first time. It will be a program where we set up this 1-1-1 strategy. In week 1, we come up with the full strategy, because we can spend 10 weeks of the 10-week program on coming up with the strategy. But in the end, we need to figure out if it actually works in reality. So it's however creative I can be, or the team is, or anyone, like we can come up with the most creative idea. But it doesn't mean anything. It's in the end, it's the question of whether it works or not. And it might be that your obvious ideas don't work and you need a bit of creativity, but I don't think it's like that you need to be the smartest person in the room to be great at growth. So we try to go out there as soon as possible and then learn from it. And you want creativity for some freshness, but it's not the key ingredient.
Got it. But the example you had there, week 1, you have the entire roadmap, and then you adapt, because you don't want to wait for 10 weeks and try to research and come up with data. And then it meets the users and they say, nah, this is not it. Like, we don't want this. We want something else. That's a great one, because you will never be fully correct about anything. Your job as an experimenter, as a growth person, is to figure out what the truth is. Like, it's as simple as that. Before you get too comfortable, I have a rapid fire section of the podcast. Try to spend 20 seconds per answer at most. We don't have a timer, but you can do this. You can crush this. So what is the worst growth hack you've ever seen a company try and fail? Let's add that. No naming names.
I think this is quickly getting to the dark patterns of trying to gaslight people into buying a product that they are not looking for. Then it always kills you in the long run.
I love that. I love that. So if you had to delete every single analytics tool except for one, or tracking tool, whatever, except for one, which one are you keeping?
Microsoft Clarity. So I think it is at this point it's a free tool. I'm a Dutchie, so I love free stuff. So many of the other analytics tools will tell you what is going wrong, but it doesn't give you any idea of why it is going wrong. And Clarity is basically nowadays more of a mix between the Google Analytics and Hotjar. So it also gives you the recordings and the heat maps, and that gives you way more ideas of how to continue after a failed experiment versus just seeing if it went well or bad.
I absolutely love that. And Clarity, I mean, it's getting the recognition, it's being used, but GA4 still gets all the love from, not love, but just people are used to.
If I could keep all the tools in the world and only delete one, it would be GA4.
That's a great answer as well. So you walk into a company and they have been growth hacking for a year, quote unquote, and the sales are flat or not happening. What is the first thing you check?
First thing is creating a pirate funnel of everything, of all the little steps where people have to go through, so that we at least get somewhat of an idea where people are dropping off.
Got it.
And find a bit of a narrower focus.
Great answer. Once again, so you have 24 hours to 10x the signups for a brand new startup and you have zero budget. What do you do?
24 hours, zero budget. Then it goes all into crazy TikToks. I think
that's good.
That is nowadays going for like the real virality, and then you just create loads of funny, crazy stuff.
That's awesome. Goes back to what you said about not relying on social, but when you're desperate, that's when you rely on social. Exactly.
And if I have no budget, right? I mean, it's not a long-term play, but if you only give me 24 hours, then I'll go there.
I absolutely love that. One more. So if you could run an A/B test on anything in real world, not business related, what would you test?
A/B test on anything in the world.
It could be literally anything on Earth. Yeah.
Can I go for a Trump versus Harris?
Whoa. That's interesting. That is very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, running back elections and testing the other candidate. Let's just say that. Let's put it as a general thing. That would be super interesting. Yep.
Exactly. All the guardrail metrics of how our different war playing out, economics going. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Do you think AI will ever give us that option? Like, let's say there's a dictator who wants to go to war with a country, and then they can play out the scenario, like what's the movie, Doctor Strange style, like all of the paths that could happen, and then based on that, they make the decision.
Yeah, I think AI can it's just like strategizing. Like even if you would also give us like a 10 years to work, like do all the math ourselves, like as humans,
right,
before AI existed, I think you could have done the full analysis, but it's still the reality needs to show how it actually works.
And humans always enter the discussion and just mess everything up. Okay, let's go back to growth now. And let's talk about difference in marketing approaches between growth hacking, growth marketing, traditional marketing. How do growth teams' goals differ from traditional marketing teams' goals?
So I always explain it as, I think growth, when it was a new concept, it's more of like growth is a big priority for a company, but no one department or person carries that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is very busy with keeping the website up to date, the next newsletter, big new campaign. Sales has current leads and targets to hit. CEO also has vision and HR to deal with, and culture. So I think growth was more like a secondary priority for all of those people. So I think nowadays, with growth being a more prominent part of many businesses, you should see it as marketing has the focus of hitting the target this month with all of the tactics that we know work well, and we just need to hit our target of this month, and they can do the optimization of it, but they just need to run the playbook that we have as good as we can. And then the growth team basically has a question of like, okay, great, how can we not next month, but like next quarter or next year go 2 times or 10 times bigger? And that's like the challenge for the growth team, right? So it's more like one of my clients explained it as the marketing team is a today team, growth is a tomorrow team. And that is a nice way of playing it with, not being responsible for day-to-day operations and being responsible for that part.
That was going to be my follow-up question to today versus tomorrow. So I'm glad you said that yourself. So basically, growth team needs to explore and find where the marketing team should be going. Like if it's a rally car or with rally drivers, growth is the one with the map and marketing is the one with the wheel. Not a great analogy, but you get the point. So, okay. And do they work together? Like, in an ideal world, in an ideal company, should they be working together, or should just growth just do their job and pass it over to marketing team?
I think growth is more of a learning exercise, right? So you need to learn what works and what doesn't. So you need a lot of insights there from a lot of different parts of the companies and users, and you need to be a sponge all day and collect all the different insights. So there you need to work together. You need to know where is a priority for so much time from now. So not talking with the CMO or other commercial parts of the business is a no-go. And it's basically every time when growth figures something out that is like, oh, this works really well, we should implement this in the day-to-day operations, then it should be handed over to marketing, and marketing should learn from growth of what did you learn there, what works, and then they can double down there and scale it up.
But it's also a loop. Growth should be learning from marketing, because when marketing starts doing something and if it starts working even better than it did when they started, of course, that's a lesson for growth team, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's also like growth should also be able to let go of certain things that are just like maybe more of the optimization part, and not trying to pull everything towards themselves as they're the one department that does everything.
That makes a lot of sense. So what is the role of experimentation in growth?
It's basically the bridge between we came up with a strategy, or we need to figure out the right strategy, and their experimentation is basically the tool of putting it in practice and seeing how it works. I think this is more of the more you put out there in a right way, then the more steps forward you can take. So this really comes down to the velocity of how many experiments can you run.
Right.
And then learning which assumptions work and don't, and implementing those.
And what is an experiment in a growth strategy? Like, give me one example. It's not necessarily an A/B test, which is what most people think about when they think about experiment. Like scientifically conducted A/B test in a platform where, if it's green, it's statistically significant and whatnot. I guess with growth, you need to take more risks.
Yeah, exactly. So it can also be like a completely new campaign, or completely new channel, or completely new audience. All of that is also, it doesn't have to be an A/B test, doesn't need to have comparison, still need to know whether it works or not. And then, I don't know, like there are other ways you can learn next to putting things out there in the world, like user research or looking at competitors or doing customer interviews. But I don't know if I would put those under like what I would count as an experiment, but it's still insight gathering.
I mean, you're trying to figure out what works, and that is an experiment. If you're trying a new Meta ads campaign, or trying a Reddit ads campaign, or like whatever that you never tried before, you don't have statistical significance, sure, but it's an experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah. What about the future trends in growth? Let's just use growth strategy, hacking, marketing, whatever. This is the AI section of the episode, obviously. So what's changing in 2025? Is it?
I don't know. I'm curious to see how. I'm yet still waiting for some AI tools that really implement stuff in a reliable, high quality fashion. If indeed at some point we can be basically running unlimited experiments on any channel, on our website, everything, then the whole concept of, okay, what do we run? Why do we run this experiment is slightly changing. That's where I think AI has a big impact. Like if you have unlimited resources to set things up, basically.
But
That's
let's not talk about the tool that does everything for you. What are the tools that help you with certain steps of growth? Like, is that any different now than it was, let's say, 5 years ago? Like analyzing the large volumes of data faster, stuff like that.
yeah. There are. I think those are. Yeah. Sorry. I think those are indeed the clearer tools to get faster at coming up with ideas, writing the copy, creating more variations, doing the analysis. Those are part of the process as well. I don't think that's where it's changing that much in that sense. I don't know. I feel like
Oh, it's not. The velocity is changing thanks to these tools.
yeah, exactly.
But the
Just
direction
velocity.
is the same. Yeah.
Enough for a lot of companies. It doesn't. I noticed that it makes the work easier, but it's not like they said, okay, we now know that it takes us this much less time, therefore we can actually run more experiments. It's just I don't know. I spend less time writing copy.
Right.
The end, it didn't impact more experiments.
Which makes sense. Like, I mean, AI now is something that can help you do those things that you didn't have time for. It cannot drive the car. Well, technically it can with mixed results, but it should not be driving the car. Is what I
No.
mean. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about let's just focus on how the audience and it's people who do CRO experimentation, build their products, digital products, how they can integrate some of the growth strategies and growth strategically in what they're doing. So let's say you have a digital product that you're just getting started. You don't know about go-to-market. You don't know any of this stuff. What are the first steps someone can take in creating their growth strategy?
Sorry, are you still want to be in the AI section?
I don't care. I don't care. No.
Okay, good. Starting to it's this is basically like even to create your first strategy, you need to get out there in some way. So if you really have a company starting something from zero, you need to start with basic hustle and see how far it gets you. So it can be calling people, messaging people. That's the fastest way to get feedback, however painful it might be. But you need to get out there because it's also like when I create a strategy, I try to listen for like what is the stuff that already worked for you without you even putting too much effort into it. So it's like which kinds of words feel good or which kind of ways have you found that you got some earlier clients. So you need to get out there first and get some clients. I don't even think you need a landing page to sell anything. Might be nice if you have a visual, but that could be made in like a Canva or PowerPoint just to create a visual of a product that you want to sell. And then it's just trying to get out there and seeing what sticks, what doesn't, like that.
So the first steps are going to be painful no matter what. Like you said, you need to hustle and just get out there and be ready for rejections and whatnot, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, indeed. And I think if you go out there, it's like the amount of actual rejection you will get is much lower. So it's almost more, in my experience, it's more that you need to listen very carefully to, on purpose, trying to invalidate stuff or trying to find your ways how you could be pivoting, because very often people are too nice to you and either they ghost you or they give you a very pleasant answer. So that's indeed it. But it isn't. I don't want to scare people into thinking that everything will be painful. So
No, of course not. But let's go back to the people are too nice to you. They don't give you an honest answer or ghost you. How can you avoid that?
it's you probably know the book The Mom Test, right? So it's you want to ask questions in such a way that even if you would ask your mom for feedback on your great new exciting startup idea, that even she would be giving you the answer of how it could be wrong. So trying to ask questions about like what products people have used, how much money they've actually spent, how they are currently doing things, what is actually annoying. And I find it funny that even like if people don't even talk about your part of the business of their process, and they don't talk about the part that you're trying to solve. Like I've had this with the experiment management software where I see it as you try to keep track of all the experiments that you're running. It helps you to improve your flow. But when I ask people about it, nobody on their own starts talking about how hard it is to do documentation. It's not a frustration. When I ask people for it, they don't keep track of it. But in the end, it's like they will be happy when they have a better flow standing. But apparently, it's not a big problem. And I found that while trying to grow the business, it's a nice tool. It's a nice to have, but it's not a painkiller for anyone. So that's an interesting one.
It's not a necessity. So I mean, the thing you said about the mom test and all that, you want them to tell you what's wrong with your idea. Like this is really what you want to find out. Even if you think it's perfect, you want to know how this could be different and better. And if it's perfect for you, it's not perfect for everyone.
Or otherwise, indeed, you can tell me how much money you put on the table for it, and then I actually want to get the money. Like that's how far I will go in the questions. And then you will still hear like the smaller objections coming in that I couldn't have asked for. So it's a good one. And then if there are still no objections, then okay, I need to like increase pricing, etc. That's also a fun road lever, by the way, where I don't think like anybody really talks about in growth except for like the pricing people, but like pricing monetization is if you can increase prices with a 50% and don't lose 50% of your customers, then it's great. It's great business. But
that would be a huge
nobody dares to touch it.
Right. So early stage growth, we talked about that early in the episode, is about trying stuff, using some not shortcuts, but trying to figure out what's going to work. How do you transition from that to meaningful and long-term strategies that a company can have to go from that 1 million in revenue to 10 or 100? Because I assume it's a very difficult transition because it's a complete mindset change from just scrapping to actually having a system and something that's going to be very long-term.
Yeah, exactly. So when you first get started, it's about get some customers in the first place, right? That's the main challenge, keep people in. So this is the hustle part. You will be all over the place. That's a part of it. But to really get on this hockey stick curve, like the difference is that you are able to automate stuff, double down on it, that you can use more of this compounding effect. And that can only happen if you can focus your effort into one place. So that's where this 1-1-1 framework comes in as the first step of 3. So I have this growth focus framework that I use more often. It starts with this 1-1-1. You want to find this product market fit kind of definition of your 1-1-1. One channel, one audience, one message. Once you have that standing somewhat, then the next question is, okay, what is my main, within the channel, what is my main funnel? So how do we attract people? How do we convert people? How do we activate people? And how do we retain people? So it's basically these different stages that people will go through. And all of them, you need to find one thing that works really well. Because we're already like, we're in 2 parts of a framework and we already have 7 blocks that we need to cover.
Right.
So it's really hard to already have all of that going well. But like if you want to outpace competitors, you need to have that kind of focus. And when you have that main funnel running, you know how to do it, you can double down there. And once you have more room available in your time, you want to find like a small, almost SOP for yourself, a little, like a very set of activities that you want to be repeating every week, just for the sake of building momentum, building a brand. And there you just need to go out there. How do we build trust, show that we have quality, get more social proof around the brand. That's like your third part. So it's like these three things, like the 1-1-1, the funnel, and your momentum flywheel. If you get those three things right for early stage growth, that's where you make the switch from the flat part of the hockey stick into the real scaling phase. But it's the scaling phase is, we know what's working. We need to double, triple down there. But you need to know where to go. So it deserves a bit of hustle.
Especially early on. I mean, when you don't know, that's when your job is to figure out. And it's not always easy because you're doing something for the first time with that specific company and at that specific time. This was amazing. Like the 1-1-1 framework is really something that I believe the audience will have and will be able to memorize and think about when they're working on their growth. So how can the audience connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah. So telling people not to grow on organic social, but I'm very active nowadays on LinkedIn. So I'm always happy to help there. So in the upcoming time, I'll be launching this growth focus program as well, where the 1-1-1 framework is a key. So that will be how to find your channel, how to do stuff like that. You'll find it on my LinkedIn, but I'll also be creating more long form content on Grow with Ward, the blog. So hopefully by the time that you start Googling about this, you will find my own blog articles ranking there.
I'm pretty sure they will. What is the last takeaway you have for the audience before we wrap it up? Growth related.
Let's not give more. Let's go for the focus, right? I think if you can find this focus and you can work there, you will find that there are so many more questions popping up once you get there. But it's first like try to get there, and then we'll optimize from there.
But that is a great final takeaway. Ward, thank you so much. This has been an absolute joy to talk to you, have you on the podcast. And yeah, to everyone listening, I'm sure you have learned a lot, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you.